Hey everybody, Vestmore here, and today we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3. Ever since the reveal trailer we got a little while back, I have been itching for new details on this game, and finally, at PAX East, my wishes came true. We got an almost hour and a half long presentation on an early access build of the game, and honestly, even though it's early access, it looks amazing. So I figured today I'd essentially round that presentation up and bring you guys pretty much everything we know on Baldur's Gate 3 so far. If you enjoyed this video, do be sure to leave a like and definitely let me know down in the comments if you're looking forward to Baldur's Gate 3. I know I am, and I just genuinely cannot wait to cover this on the channel. Anyway, let's get started. So, starting from the top, let's talk about what we already knew. Based on the cinematic teaser that we saw earlier on, we knew that the story of Baldur's Gate 3 would heavily revolve around the Illithid, the Mind Flayers, which, for those of you who don't know too much about D&D lore, they are essentially these almost eldritch kind of beings that have incredibly potent psionic abilities, being able to dominate lesser creatures' minds. But one of the more terrifying things about the Illithid is that they eat brains, so they enjoy snacking on the other races. To make matters even worse, the way that they multiply is essentially by inserting these little tadpoles into people's heads, which over a period of time ends up essentially consuming their brain and transforming them into a mind flayer. This is known as ceramorphosis, which is what you can actually see happening at the end of this teaser trailer. We were shown essentially the beginning or the opening cutscene for the game, where we instead actually get to see the beginning of this process, with several mind flayers implanting tadpoles into some poor unfortunate souls. But what's interesting here is the fact that this woman right here is actually a Githyanki, which are a race of people who broke free of Illithid enslavement. And this is of course awesome because these two races are essentially mortal enemies. And as the cutscene kind of plays out and we see the Illithid sort of invading these human towns and cities, which I assume are in the Forgotten Realms, we actually see some Githyanki atop red dragons come and essentially try and put a stop to this invasion. It's really, really awesome. I'm a really big fan of the stories that D&D has, and essentially just to see all of these kind of like set pieces that I'm aware of sort of coming together in the form of like a video game, that just has me super excited. Anyway, I don't want to linger too long on these story elements. Perhaps I can make a separate video if you guys would like, essentially discussing the elements that I play here, but for now, let's move on to the gameplay itself. So one of the first things we get a look at is the character creation. And straight off the bat, just being someone who, I'm not the biggest D&D fan in the world, I think that's an impossible feat, but I have been playing D&D for about 4 to 5 years now. And one of the things you'll find with this game is they have been incredibly faithful to the D&D system. Like, it's actually just so heartwarming to see. But yeah, essentially starting off, you have, your general stuff, you can pick your body type, male, female, etc. But then you can also pick a background, and looking at it, it looks like there's 10 available for the moment, but we only get a look at 5 of them, which is the Charlatan, Criminal, Entertainer, Folk Hero, and Noble. Now, just at a glance, I assume that these are going to take on the same sort of role as the tag system in Divinity Original Sin 2, in that they essentially would alter or kind of give you different dialogue options depending on which kind of tags, or in this case backgrounds, you had. So for instance, if you were a charlatan, for instance, I would imagine that if you were in a situation where you're doing something a little bit more unscrupulous, then perhaps you'll have different input into that situation than if you were, say, a kind of noble or a folk hero, for instance. I think it's definitely worth noting as well that these backgrounds have essentially been ripped straight from the book for D&D 5e, and again, that is just awesome. Now, of course, you also get to pick your race, and honestly, most of the core races from the 5e kind of, rulebook are here. It is missing a few. However, you got your tieflings, you got drow, you got humans, dwarves, elves, half drow, and halflings. You also have Githyanki, which is really interesting. They're definitely a much rarer race to see, especially for the kind of regular sort of like core races of any setting, really. But obviously, given the setting of Baldur's Gate 3 and the kind of involvement of the Gith and the Mind Flayers, it makes a ton of sense. You can of course also pick classes, of which there are 6 currently. Those are the Wizard, Cleric, Fighter, Ranger, Rogue, and Warlock. Again, these are classic D&D classes, which is really cool. And then once you've picked your race and your class, you can essentially assign your attributes. These are your core stats like Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Well, there's honestly so much that we see within this very short character creation segment, but like you can see that races get their own features, much like the actual tabletop RPG. You can pick skill proficiencies and such, and these things all kind of, obviously join together to determine what your character is good at. I could happily talk about how all of these systems are in the, the tabletop RPG and such like that, but honestly that'd take too long. So all you really have to know is that there are different skills attached to each of the core stats. So for instance, strength might have something like athletics, and dexterity might have something connected to it like stealth. And the better you are at those things, the better you will be at utilizing them, obviously. We actually get to see how these correspond to the actual game of Baldur's Gate 3, so once those come up, I'll point them out. Another really cool thing that they've brought back from DOS 2 is the origin stories. These are essentially pre-built characters that have their own backstories and are fleshed out a lot more than just a player-made character. I personally really enjoyed this in DOS 2, so I'm happy to see it come back. There are currently 5 origin stories at the moment, but they have said that, when it comes to things like classes, races, origin stories, and just a ton of the other stuff that you're going to see today, they're going to be adding more. This is essentially just the early access build, but full release is going to have a ton more content. Now, as for the gameplay itself, when you're exploring, it's all in real time. And once you enter combat, that's when it turns into a turn-based system. Now, I know a lot of people aren't a fan of turn-based stuff, but of course with D&D being a turn-based game, it only makes sense for this to be turn-based. Also, Larian's turn-based combat system is really, really good. So honestly, if you've not, liked kind of traditional turn-based games, you may end up enjoying this. One of the cool features that you can actually do now as well is during the free kind of real-time exploring portions of the game, you can actually make those turn-based, which allows you to do several things. You can now sneak up on people without having to be, super quick. You can kind of take your time and really break down how you want to navigate different scenarios. This is actually really well shown during this kind of section where they trigger a trap, and essentially it's almost like a puzzle trying to get out because, on one turn he can only move certain amount of spaces and then the trap will go off. So it's like almost this kind of puzzle experience as opposed to being, okay, are your reflexes fast enough to run past this trap? And I think that's amazing. I think that's honestly going to allow for so many more kind of creative ways to overcome situations. And yeah, I think it's great. One of the other really cool things about this game is that it essentially utilizes a back-end system that mimics dice rolls. So every calculation, every attack, damage, just literally everything is done via dice rolls in the back end. Now, this is shown as kind of percentages and stuff, but you can actually see the dice rolls themselves if you hover over the combat log, which I think is a really neat feature. Combat itself is incredibly cool because there's so many more options than even the Divinity games that you can take advantage of. You can throw things, you can shove people, objects at other people, etc. You can utilize your environment really well, be that hazards or just, like a box you can throw at somebody from a height, for instance. And speaking of heights, they were saying that this game is going to be a lot more vertical, and you can kind of see that at certain points during the presentation. Actions such as, dipping your arrows into a nearby fire to create, fire arrows, stuff like that you would think just makes sense logically, and things that you, up until this point, really only could do in like a tabletop system like D&D. They've really thought about all of these things. So honestly, that's the main thing I'm looking forward to, is essentially just that freedom of being able to make a multitude of choices while in combat. On top of that, again, just the faithfulness to D&D that they have here, just within all systems, is staggering. Like, combat-wise, the way turns work, of course, you roll initiative to see who goes first, for instance. Each character gets an action, a bonus action, and movement, just like the real game. Once you hit 0 HP, you have to make death saving throws, and obviously if you get 3 successes, you stabilize and you're fine. If you get 3 failures, you die. You can gain advantage on attacks, which allows you to obviously roll the accuracy twice, meaning you're more likely to hit. And you can gain this in a multitude of ways. The one way that we've seen is by, when using a ranged weapon, being higher than your opponent, having the high ground. There are some things that are a bit different, such as each weapon type having its own sort of like extra action you can use with it. So instead of just attacking, it might have, a special attack on it. For instance, bows have a pin down attack, which if it hits, does a little bit less damage, I think, but essentially it will stop the target from moving. There's also familiar concepts such as difficult terrain, which halves movement if you walk through it. Concentration, which is, if you're concentrating on a spell or an action, if you're hit, you have to make a constitution saving throw. And if you fail, then you lose your concentration and thus the spell. Sneak attack is in, where, if you're a rogue and you manage to get the drop on somebody, you can deal extra damage with your weapon. I'm sure even people who don't play D&D are familiar with these kind of concepts, but the way in which they're laid out specifically is just essentially one-to-one with the RPG. So yeah, that's why I'm getting super gassed about it. That's why I'm excited about it. The sneaking system has gotten a bit of a facelift as well. It's again much closer to D&D, where you have different levels of obscurement. So if you're out in the open, in broad daylight, you're going to be, within clear view. If someone's vision cone passes over you, you're spotted. Combat ensues. If you're in a shadow, and this can be any shadow, and again, you can manipulate shadows by, moving light sources, turning light sources off, etc. And if you're in a shadow, then you've got light obscurement, and what that does is essentially makes it so that if someone tries to, if their vision cone moves over you, they might see you. You have to do a stealth roll, and that compares to their passive perception roll, and if you manage to beat that, then you're fine, you don't get detected. And then of course you've got heavy obscurement, which is like almost pitch black total darkness, and that's, unless the person trying to find you has dark vision, then they're not going to be able to see in the dark, meaning you can pretty much walk right up to them and stab them if you want. But yeah, just that small extra layer of complexity to the stealth system, I feel will just make it 10 times better. And will really get you to think, what light sources can I take out if I want to take this stealthily? And just stuff like that. Just getting you to think in ways that aren't just, let me kill this guy first because, he's the squishiest, is good to me. So yeah, I'm glad. We love a bit of complexity. Speaking of passive checks as well, it's being fleshed out in this game, with it not just being stuff like passive perception and stuff like that, it's also going to be things like history and nature. So for instance, we see in the presentation that the cleric manages to succeed on a nature check and get some information about like the kind of rock or ore, I think, that is in front of them. And that kind of information could be helpful. There's several situations where you might, walk into a chapel, for instance, and there's a statue, and that could mean something like, okay, this is bad, we shouldn't be here. And no one would know that unless someone succeeded on, say, like a religion check. So just small things like that, I think, will be really helpful with fleshing out the world. These checks can give you lore pieces, they can give you just information that will make your life easier, like stuff like that. And I like that kind of thing. Information's like something that isn't withheld enough in video games, and I think putting it behind a system like this really helps to kind of bridge that gap between sort of tabletop RPGs and video games. So I really, really love that. They also briefly showed a camp system, which essentially seemed to be sort of the kind of relationship hub of the game. It's where your characters kind of interact on a more personal level. You can kind of build bonds, break them, that kind of stuff. And they were also saying that over time, as you progress through the game, you'll get extra followers, you'll get other people who will start kind of, being around your camp, and it will kind of grow organically. So that is quite nice. Also, based on what we saw, I expect that the origin stories are really going to shine in these moments because, you know, as we saw in the presentation, the vampire character he was playing had the option to actually drink the blood of the companion that he recruited. And, you know, that's huge. It's like, what happens? How does that change the game? I don't know. I think it's crazy. I'm really excited to kind of get my hands on this kind of camp system and just see how the choices within that change outcomes and things like that. And finally, because I realized that this video has probably gone on for way too long, let's talk about release dates and platforms. Now, this is going to be super quick. There's no official release date at the moment, but they did say that they're going to be releasing into early access in the coming months. So I'd expect to see some information on that shortly. When I know, I'll let you guys know. And as for platforms, they say that the only platforms they're talking about at the minute are PC and Stadia releases. So no word on console yet, but knowing Larian, they do like to port their things over to console at later dates, so I wouldn't worry about that, but who knows, we'll have to just wait and see. Anyway guys, thank you so much for essentially listening to me nerd out about Baldur's Gate, D&D, etc. and, you know, how faithful this game is going to be to classic D&D. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're as excited as I am for the game, and, you know, definitely let me know in the comments down below what your favorite thing about this reveal was. Anyway, that's enough from me. This is Vest, signing off.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that video. Remember to hit that subscribe button and also click on the little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. Also, don't forget, you can check out 269 and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. Be sure to drop by and get involved. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.